management. We're going to talk about their career paths and how they became general managers. And we're going to open this up and make it an open forum. I'm going to ask a few questions along the way, and we'll get some feedback and some advice and some great input from both Paul and Tom about their careers. And I encourage everybody on the call today to ask questions when we get to that point. And if you want to put it in the chat box, we can look at that as well too. But it's better if you just ask your question, unmute yourself, and if you want to show yourself on video, that'd be great too. It's a very interactive session. The more you put in, the more you get out of it. So I want to welcome Jeff Johnson to the call tonight too. Jeff, thanks for being here. It's always a treat to have you and your leadership and your presence with these town hall meetings. So thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And could we enlarge Paul Devine's picture just a little bit so that I could have it as a screensaver? No. All right, there we go.
So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and start here. I'm going to give a little bit of background briefly, read their bios. So Tom Sun, who's the current PGA General Manager at Arrowwood Golf Club. Tom was a graduate of West Point, 1994. He served in our U.S. Army from 94 to 99. Thank you, Tom, for your service. Tom then worked for Merrill Lynch in Hong Kong as the vice president. From there, he went to J.P. Morgan in South Korea as a director. He then went to Deutsche Bank of Korea as a managing director. And then that's when things changed in his life, because he decided, you know, I want to do something fun. I want to enjoy what I do for a living, and I want to give back and enjoy the rest of my life. So he changed to golf, and he went through the Golf Academy America. He was valedictorian in 2017. So kudos to you, Tom, on that. Started as the general manager at Arrowhead in 2017, and that's where he is today. He's a PGA member. He's also a member of the Club Management Association of America. He is a San Diego board member. He's the associate committee chairman, member of our SCPGA board directors as the associate committee chairperson. So Tom, welcome to this thing.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for the introduction. Great to be on this call and to be part of this call as someone who's actually running this town hall. It's great. It's an honor and privilege to be here today. Thank you.
Great. Our other guest we have this evening is Paul Devine, PGA General Manager at Bernardo High Country Club. Paul, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Ed.
Paul has been a PGA member for 23 years. He's been the general manager for the last 12 years at a number of different private clubs. Before that, he ran the Nike Golf Learning Centers. He was the teaching professional and assistant professional for 5 years. He was the regional director of instruction for another 5 years after that. And then the last 4 years with Nike, he was the national director of all the Nike Learning Centers for 4 years. So Paul, welcome to you this evening, and thank you for giving us your time and your wisdom this evening.
Glad to be here, Ed. And it's great to be here with Tom. You know, thinking about Tom's banking background, I got, and his college background, I think I flunked out of Fresno State. I can't remember how many checking accounts I blew up. So I need to sit down with Tom just to pick his brain a little bit to help me out.
Well, we're going to learn a lot from you two this evening. I'm going to go with a series of questions for the two of you. If along the way someone feels so inclined that they want to raise their hand, they want to open their video and say some comments, please do that. And if we don't have any, we'll keep going through our questions as you learn from these two wonderful professionals about their careers that hopefully will help you on your path. So I'm going to start with you, Tom. So as the general manager at Arrowwood Golf Club, it's a public facility. You know, give us a little bit of your passion for the PGA and why did you want to become a PGA member?
First of all, Ed, I want to thank you. When I approached you to be a guest speaker on our monthly associate town hall, you came up with this idea, and I think it's a great idea to get other PGA members involved on this town hall. And make more of an interactive and hopefully very informative session for all those on this call today, and for those who will hopefully listen and watch the recording later. So thank you, Ed, for your initiative, and it's great to have you on the call today. To answer your question, it's very simple. I did what I did in the banking industry. I wanted to. I was thinking about what I can do with the rest of my life for, and also most importantly to have fun. So I decided to just naively move to San Diego with my family, live in this great climate, and get educated on the golf industry, and start my golf career. And I guess, when I was at the Golf Academy, a lot of people were telling me, especially my mentors there, Rich Iorio, who was the head of the school, you need to become a PGA member. So that's how you become part of the industry. And so I started the process 2017 in August. Took me 2 years to become a member. I've been Paul's been in it for 23. I've been in it for 4 years, so it's been a very short career for me. But the last 4 years, being a PGA member, being a general manager at Arrowwood Golf Course, have been the most fulfilling experience of my life, and that's great. I love doing this every day, and I'm so proud to be a PGA professional, PGA member. So proud to be serving on the board, trying to assist and help and make a positive impact to associates' lives, and personally, professionally, and it's every day is a dream come true. So that's my reason for being a PGA member.
Well, that speaks volumes, and I'll tell you, your passion for our business and your passion as a PGA professional really shine through at Arrowwood, and your staff, and what a great staff you have there, and how much they respect you and the things that you do there. So kudos to you, Tom, on what you've created there.
Thank you.
The things that becoming a general manager is not easy. Your path to a general manager was much different than Paul's. I'm going to flip over to Paul here for a second. Paul, can you give us your insight on how you became a PGA professional, and then your passion for what you still do every single day?
Well, it's interesting. I, obviously a very different path from Tom, and maybe similar to some of the associates out there, or some of our members. I was always into sports, but I'd never played golf until my senior year of high school, and fell in love with the game just getting out there to play. But when I was in college, I was looking at international business and thinking, hey, maybe I'll do some things with business. But I kept finding golf as part of my life. And I ran across a friend of mine that had gone into the PGA and was working at a course. And it was one of those opportunities to say, hey, I could mix both business and golf together in one kind of career thing when we take a look at it. So I ended up working in the golf business a little bit as a shop assistant, and then moved into the PGA as an opportunity to kind of develop my career and learn. I was very fortunate that the PGA had developed the GPTP program back then, which was kind of another phase of development and education, because it really gave me the groundwork and the fundamentals that I needed to continue my career, because I didn't have any connections with the industry or any previous experience. So I was very thankful to the PGA, and that's part of what drives my passion for what I do with the PGA nowadays, is to give back and help contribute to the lives of those that are coming next, as well as those around me. So that's what I love doing. But I also just still love the sport, and I get to do the best of both worlds, the business and the sport. So why not?
Yeah, well, that's again, it's rings true to why so many people get into our business and love the golf business so much, and continue to thrive and enjoy it every single day. I was a general manager for 16 years before going to work for the PGA of America. And people ask me who I don't know, they say to me, Ed, and I said, I'm a golf professional. So once you're a golf professional, you're always a golf professional, no matter what your title is, no matter if you're at a facility or not a facility or what. So, I want to encourage everybody on this call to, no matter where you go with in your career, and hopefully if the general manager path is the way to go, you start as a PGA professional, and you will always be a PGA professional. So wear that badge very proudly.
So Ed, if I could just add one other comment. when I was an associate for 2 years, and none of the platforms that we have available now was available at the time. So I did a lot of, I guess, searching and wanted to meet with a lot of PGA professionals, and I did. I met a lot of people, and that's the reason why I really wanted to become a PGA member, is because when I met the PGA members, first of all, no one said no to me when I sent them an email or called and said, "Can I come see you?" And they gave me their time and really like wanted to help me. So when I got that experience from all these great PGA professionals during my 2 years as an associate, really like gave me the drive, the motivation to be one of them and be like them. And that was really cool to have all these PGA members really, wanting to help. So I think that's one of the best things about being a PGA members. There's so many great people, and they all want to help you and to make you help you succeed and help you with the career path. That's what really got me going with the PGA membership.
Well, I think, Tom, that's well said, because as everybody needs a mentor or mentors along their path, it's also good. And I'm going to get to that in a minute, but as a general manager, as both of you as general manager, how do you now continue to mentor your staff and then someone who is now getting in the golf business? So we'll get to that in a second. But Tom, I have another question for you here. Your path is, as we talked about, is slightly different to get to a general manager position. Changing careers is the second career. What was really your biggest obstacle, your hardest challenge that you had in becoming a general manager? So, for example, you're obviously, your financial acumen is fantastic. You're numbers, financials, budgets. You're very, 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 very good at those things. You love the game, but how did you get to the point where you got to know more about something you didn't, maybe food and beverage, maybe agronomy? Elaborate on that a little bit.
Initially, it's a challenge. If you have no experience in the industry, you're not a PGA member, and it doesn't matter what background. Well, it does matter, but from my experience, when I speak to the leadership of that facility, it felt like there was a rigid culture in terms of you're new, you have no experience. That weighs more than the experience I had in terms of the leadership experience in the Army or the finance experience in the banking industry. They didn't really consider that as a strength where that person maybe come in and add value right away. They just thought that you didn't have any experience, so you have to start from the beginning in the cart barn or in the pro shop, assistant pro, and that was frustrating. That was challenging. The fact that they didn't think outside the box in terms of finding the right people for the facility. So then I became very persistent. I just kept on searching and looking for a position after graduating from graduation from the golf academy, and I was very fortunate. I'm very blessed to have been connected to the current owner at Arrowwood Golf Course. I went to see him physically, personally in Korea during my spring break, and I told him about my background, and fortunately he knew a lot of people I knew in Korea, because it's a small world in Korea. So he gave me an opportunity, and with the opportunity was a co-GM as an intern for 3 months before my graduation, and I was so thankful for him giving me the co-GM opportunity instead of just an assistant pro position where I could really learn and hopefully make an impact. So after graduation, he gave me the sole GM position 4 years ago, and it's been a wonderful journey so far. So it's just a matter of being persistent and really desiring to be the person that you want to be, and just never stop in terms of your search of getting that position that you want.
So in other words, you had 3 months of drinking from a fire hose was probably your biggest challenge. Is that what?
Yeah, that was it right there.
So Paul, over to you. Same question. So I'm sure when you first became an assistant professional and you and you were working your way up the ranks. Maybe general manager wasn't in the cards, and here you are today, one of the most successful in our section and around the country. What you do, what was the challenge or challenges to get you to where you are today, and how did you overcome those?
Well, there's lots of challenges when you go through those, and that's part of what you do is you deal with those challenges as they come up, and you start going, okay, where are my weaknesses? What are the things that I'm strong at? What are the things that I'm weak at that I really need to shore up? And then who can I surround myself with to help? Whether that be fellow PGA professionals that are in similar positions or other positions that have been there, or even with the Club Managers Association as well, to connect with other organizations to find expertise. When my first general manager position came open or became available for me, one of the areas that I had no experience in other than bartending and waiting tables in college was food and beverage. So it was pretty nil on operating the business. And, you know, one of the deals I had, not deals, but one of the things I had been very upfront with the owners of when I took over the position or was looking at it was, look, if you're looking for somebody to be a food and beverage expert that's going to be able to come in and change this whole food and beverage operation around, I'm probably not your guy yet at this point. So being honest about where you are and not biting off so much that you're not going to be able to handle it was a big one for me. And then they said, no, we're good in food and beverage. We need the golf side taken care of with this one. And so I was able to get in with a good food and beverage team and learn fundamentals through there in that process. But if you happen to be working for somebody that is doing those, go do what Tom did and just go ask, can I sit down with you and make the time to go find the information you need? And those things are going to open so many doors for you, but also help you with your process. For me, that was one of the challenges as a GM, obviously coming from the golf side and being so much time in teaching and golf instruction, that food and beverage was one of the weak areas to go through. But part of that, the big part of it for me was being honest up front with myself and with the people that were looking at hiring me, that, hey, it's okay to pass on me if this is what you need, because I don't have that expertise yet. But I'm willing to learn. And if you've got a good situation for me, I'll jump in. And then realizing that, you know, when you have a good relationship with your owner, whether it be the members or the owner of the club or a association, whatever it might be, you've got to remember, you've got a responsibility to them. You're taking on a fiduciary responsibility for their business. And you've got a responsibility to your customers, but you're tying all of that together. And it's one of the beautiful things about what we do in the PGA is that we tend to look at things in a much broader perspective than some other industries that might come into lead in some of our properties. So you guys have some strengths in there that are already built in that people are looking for, but don't be afraid to be honest with yourself and with the people you're going to be working for.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I think what's interesting about what you had said there too was if you were very honest with yourself with what your weaknesses were. And I think if more people were able to do that, and they would be better managers, better leaders, because you can't be perfect at everything. And again, that's why we have experts that surround us in our industry, in our clubs, at our golf courses, that make us look better, that make us perform better, and that help our operations. So I believe in that wholeheartedly, and I would second that, Paul. That it's almost impossible to be an expert in everything, but never
unless you're Jeff Johnson. But that's
well, well, that's who we all call for our advice. So yes, I agree. And I would also say that, you know, in your case, like I said, anybody on the call, when I became my first general manager position, and I accepted it. One of the guys I called was one of my mentors. I said, now what? You know, okay, now that I've gotten, now what do I do? Right? One of those situations. So I think everybody has that aha moment, and but to your point, Paul, I applaud you for, again, admitting your weaknesses, trying hard to fill those gaps, and then surrounding yourself with people. I would say any great leader would do that. And you have done that well. And Tom, you have as well. You surround yourself with one heck of a team there at Arrowwood. Let's go back to you, Tom, for a second here. Let's talk about mentorship, because I know that's, you know, Tom is a leader in mentorship in our section, and with all the associate programs that he works with and the mentoring program. He was just featured in PGA Magazine. So kudos to you, Tom, on that. If you haven't seen it, it's a great article. We're lucky to have you on our section board and the things that you do for all of our associates and professionals. Again, pushing them to be better mentors to their mentees. So thank you, Tom, for that. On that note, who are your mentors? Can you give me one mentor? And then the second part of this question is, how do you mentor your professionals? Really not your professionals, Tom, but anybody on your staff. So I know that's a loaded question, but tell me, just give me one of your mentors. And then if you could tell me how you continue to mentor your, everybody on your staff, we'd all love to hear it.
Yes, thank you for your kind words. I mean, a lot of people on this call are my mentors, to be honest. I think one of the closest mentors I have is Paul. I mean, I know he's in the call right now with me, but I went to see him at Palma Valley 3 years ago, and he showed me the course, and we had lunch and spent 2 hours with me. He never knew me before, and I just keep on bugging him and asking stupid questions, and he just keeps on answering with smart answers. So with Tom Ades, with Jeff Johnson, with Nikki, with you guys are all my mentors. Everything I learn from you guys all the time, and because I ask, again, a lot of stupid questions, you give me smart answers. So it's been a pleasure to get to know all of you as my mentors and my role models, and it's really, it feels really good to have that, to know that you have that, to know that you can always rely on those people, those mentors, anytime for anything. It's a really good feeling to have. Something I'm very proud to be associated with all of you. And to answer your second question is, I think it's just spending time. I really believe in spending time with your people as a leader. We have every employee at Arrowwood on a monthly basis met by a leader, some leader at Arrowwood. It's a mandatory monthly one-on-one meeting, and it's so important for you to really to spend the time to actually actively listen to what each individual is saying to you, and process that information and make accurate and proper decisions based upon your time with that individual, for not only for that person, but also for the facility as a whole. So I really believe I constantly spend time with people at Arrowwood on a one-on-one basis, just listening and asking questions, just listening in. And I really, that's what the whole intent of this mentorship program is to spend time, 30 minutes a month, once a month, and just ask questions and listen and get to know each other and bond with each other and help each other. And that's what the whole intent is. And I think if leaders, the associates and members of our great association really do spend time together more often, just one-on-one, and just really conversing, get to know each other, and listening to what each associate is saying, I think it's going to go a long ways in terms of building these incredible relationships that'll make a positive impact to everyone for a long time to come. So that's my simple philosophy on mentorship, is just spend time with the people that you lead.
That's great, Tom. I've seen it firsthand too, how much time you do spend with your staff. So it pays off in tenfold, how they respect you, and the amount of time you give them is special. So thanks for sharing that, and how important that is for future general managers or department heads or head pros, directors of golf. It's the same thing. If you're in leadership role, giving them as much time as you possibly can, that's great. So Paul, I've known Paul for more than 20 years. I think I've seen you at multiple facilities, Paul, and it never changes. Every time I see you, got a smile on your face, and your staff is happy. How do you do that? How do you continue to do it day in and day out with your staff and mentor them? How do you do it so well?
Well, it's funny, when you think about a question like that, you start, at least for me, I start reflecting and going, well, here's what I'm not doing that I could be doing a heck of a lot better with regards to supporting the team. But one of the things I try to do and try to accomplish on a regular basis is that understanding and reflecting and remembering where each one of our team members wants to go with their lives and their careers. What are they trying to accomplish? And if I can help them, whether that be professionally or personally on what that might be, that's what I keep at my core with our conversations. So like Tom says, you got to be able to spend time with them, but you also, for me, is making sure that that time gets redirected every so often back to where they want to go, the why for them. If you think about it that way, why are they doing this business, or why are they working so hard? What are they trying to accomplish? My food and beverage director wants to become a GM. Okay, so let's get out on the golf course with our superintendent, because that's an area that's a weakness for you. So let's go learn. What are we doing to develop those plans? And each one of them have plans, but they're self-directed with my guidance on them. So that's kind of what we'll do. And we'll send them to, other places to go help out or to go learn. So those are the things I'm trying to do from a mentorship standpoint. For me, there's been a ton. I mean, from Tom, Jeff, and Tom Addis, that is Tom's son, absolutely as well. But I'm going with Addis first on that one. But I think one of the things from a mentor standpoint is that everybody we interact with, especially with an association like this and leaders like this, is there's something we can learn from every single one of these of our fellow professionals, and they're mentors for us in different ways, right? Ross Marcano's leadership with the chapter. I've known Ross now. We went to PGA school together 25 plus years ago as well. And watching how he leads the chapter and his dedication and devotion, is triple the quadruple mine when I was doing stuff like that. And it really impresses me and really sets the tone for what I should be trying to do if I ever got back in that type of role again. And it's looking for each one of you and trying to find those jewels that you guys provide and seeing what I can do to learn from those and inspire me to do better.
That's so appropriate now, Paul, and how you said that is that we can learn from each other all the time. It never stops. And I would say, when you said, mention about helping your staff with not only educating themselves and never stopping educating themselves and raising the bar, but also then having them cross over with the departments. So to understand, to walk in their shoes, learn how they do it and appreciate it. That grows relationships, and it also makes them better leaders in the future. So kudos to you for that. And for anybody who wants to be a general manager, that's great advice. Absolutely great advice. I'll add one thing before I throw it back to Tom here. When I was a young lad, my grandfather told me, he said,
You're still young, Ed, you're still young.
He said, whatever you do, respect your elders. He said, doesn't matter whether they're a day older than you or whether they're 60 years older than you. He goes, they may not be smarter, they may not be stronger, but guess what? They've lived more life. They have more experience. So I carried that throughout my career, and I see it in the faces on the call and how you act with your staff, that if you have a staff member, even as a general manager, that's older than you have so much to learn from that person because of what they've done in their life. It doesn't have anything to do with the golf course or carts or in the kitchen. It's what that person has brought to life. And I'll never forget that. And I like to share that story because it's pertinent to this call. When you work your way up to the top, that no matter what position you get to at the top of your career, realize the people that are around you, if they're one day older or 60 years older than you, please get their advice. Please ask them about life because it goes a long, long way. Tom, another question here, and then I'm going to change course here a little bit. What advice would you give anybody on this call or anybody who watches this in the future? What advice would you give for them to become a general manager and to take the executive career path, executive manager career path in the PGA? What's a couple of pieces of nuggets that they're going to take away from this call at the end of the day?
Well, I think you have to be like Paul. Paul is, I'm jokingly saying that, but I'm at the same time seriously saying it because one of the reasons why I'm attached to Paul is because he knows everything. He knows a lot about not only teaching, not only about operations, not only about agronomy, not only about F&B. He's well-versed, well-rounded, and that's what he won my respect. And that's why I wanted to be. I wanted to be someone like well-versed in all different aspects of being a leader at a facility. And one thing I really want to, and then we want to emphasize to answer your question is financials, data. I really believe that in the Arrowwood as well, and I'm sure other facilities, our PGA professionals need to really focus. Well, first of all, understand the importance of data, number one. Number two, then actually get to make an effort to really, really understand data and financials. Because as a leader of a facility, the important part of that is financials, is the financial health of the facility. And if you don't understand it, then you can't manage it. So I really believe that it's especially as a director of golf and as a general manager, you got to understand that very, very well. And I spend a lot of time on it on a daily basis, and I try to spend time to train our staff on the importance of data, understanding data. So please do spend the time in understanding that, because it's really it's impactful to a facility, and you should definitely be an expert in it when you become a leader of your facility.
So I that's a great answer, and for anybody who's listening, I would do just that. I would also say, it's much different. The business is much different now than it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. And to Tom's point about financials and knowing data and being able to understand it and talk on it at a high level is great. And I would say that it is a business now. And so your business acumen has to raise up to the level of what your facility expects of you, or your members expect for your board of directors, or your anybody that you report to, whether it's a club owner, whatever the case may be, a single owner, a city. It doesn't matter what type of facility you're at, knowing the data is very important. And so I agree with that. And so if you don't know, and you don't have someone who's as forthright or as giving back and is a great mentor like Paul or like Tom, then Paul, what do they need to do? If I don't work for someone like you or like Tom, what's my approach to going to my superintendent and going to my general manager or my controller or my chef? How do I do that and make it still, feel comfortable?
Well, I would go back to what Tom's son leads as an example with, is that's go ahead and ask. Don't be afraid to ask. And the worst thing they can say is, I don't have time. But I've like Tom said, when he came across PGA professionals and came and asked, there wasn't a single person that didn't say no. But you got to be willing to not only ask, but then follow up with, great, when can I come over? When can I sit down? Let me schedule some time with you. Because one thing for, off the cuff, hey, could I come over and learn something? But if you're serious about it, you're gonna go, great, when works for you in the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? I'll schedule the time and make it happen. So there's another level to that after asking that question, is to follow through and make it happen and make it easy for them to help you. And that's another one I think that has gone a long way over time, is for me, and I think Tom, by example that I saw as well, is that he made the time and went out of his way to clear a schedule to be able to go meet with people to make that happen. And if you don't have those with you, the other thing you can do is talk to one of us, talk to other PGA professionals, and again, ask and then get it on the schedule, because everybody's lives are busy. But if you can go meet where they are, everybody would love to carve out a half hour or two, an hour, whatever it might be, spend the time. We love talking and sharing about our business. And it's a very, what's a good word for it? It's a very polite business. It's not a cutthroat business too much in the industry. Everybody's here willing to share. We all have our little islands of clubs that we run, or areas that we are. And even the guy that's 3 miles away from me at the golf course, we still get together and talk and see what's going on with our business, even though we do compete a bit. But it's okay. If our golf business and our clubs are growing, great, we can do it together. It's not a huge thing. So I think going and asking the question, but then making sure you make that time and make it convenient for those people to help you. And if you run into more roadblocks, then go outside the property to get the education or the help. Right. And
well said, Paul. Well said. I will say this. I had one of my former bosses along the line wasn't willing to share data with me, wasn't willing to pass on information, wasn't willing to, when I was an assistant golf professional, to have me take over the budget. And it was frustrating. It was frustrating. And I did just that. I took your advice, what you're giving advice to everybody tonight. I took that advice from someone else that I got at the time, and I went somewhere else to get it. And they helped me understand those things. And again, like you said, why did that happen? Because I hit a roadblock, but I didn't let that stop me because of the resources we have with our fellow PJ professionals and our industry professionals who are willing to help us and share that information, share that data, because we can. And this is a very good example of of the two professionals, why we're interviewing them tonight with Tom and Paul, that they are willing to do that. They want to give back, and it's not just to their staff and the people that they're working with. I guarantee you, when this is over, anybody on this call that wants to call Paul and ask for advice, wants to email him, he'll spend the time to meet with you, to give that to you. Same thing with Tom. He'll spend the time, he'll meet with you. And that's, I think it's such a great thing about the business we're in. You wouldn't see that. Tom, tell me the truth. When you were at JP Morgan Bank, were you sharing any information with any other banks?
I think Paul said it well. PGA is not cutthroat. Banking is cutthroat. Banking is all about me, how much money I'm going to make my bonus. It's about me surviving so I could work next year. The PGA, if you compare the two, that's why I said earlier, it feels so good to have these two people that I surround myself with every day. It's just such a good feeling to have the brotherhood of PGA taking care of each other. It's so much better than the banking industry, and it's so real. It's so real. It's not artificial. It's not fake. And that's why I love about being a member of PGA. And one other thing I wanted to mention: why do we have to be good at data? Why do you have to know the data? Well, I think the data tells us what decisions to make going forward. Any strategic decisions, any forward-looking decisions. That it comes from, to me, a lot of that answer comes from the data. If you know the data, if you read the data right, you understand the data, you can make forward strategic decisions about the best decision for the facility. And I think that's why it's critical that we understand data. And one last thing I forgot to mention is Ross Marcano, our president of the San Diego chapter. I want to thank Mark Ross, because he was the one who enabled me to start the mentorship program for the San Diego chapter. So thank you, Ross. I forgot to mention that. I want to make sure that everyone hears that, because thank you so much for allowing me to do so.
And Ed, if I think jumping onto Tom's thought there with the data, if you're looking at running or the business, a multi-million-dollar club down the line, you better know your numbers, and you better know what stories those numbers tell you. And a lot of us come from, or at least like I did, came from a teaching background somewhat, and data has become a big part of what we do in teaching as well now. But think about what you get from that. If you've got somebody on a TrackMan or you've got them on a flight scope, you're getting certain data that's happening. If you've taken them through a TPI screen and you've gotten some physical data on what their body's capable of doing, then you look at their equipment, right? And you see, what is their equipment? How all of these things mesh together? What are their physical capabilities? What are the tools they're using? What courses are they playing? How often are they practicing? All of these components are data that go into making those decisions on what's going to be the best route to help them get better at their golf swing and their golf game and scoring better. Well, that's the same thing we're doing in running the business. Is I'm taking the data from all the different points of our business, I'm meshing those together and trying to go, what's going to be the best decision for us to run our business? And I better understand the data to help me tell that story, right? So maybe a good analogy to think about it for us when we start transitioning from maybe how we teach and live on a daily basis to running a business.
Hey, Paul, is it possible I can jump in here real quick?
Ross, go ahead, please.
Am I being rude? Because this might be a good segue. Tom has been very kind, and so have you, Paul, and I appreciate that. So this is Ross Marcano, president of the San Diego chapter, and talking about data, Tom, I had a conversation with John Kulo, and he's saying that, and I asked him about cost of goods sold, and he's saying that might be kind of a, not as important these days, because maybe the bottom line is not that important. It's the top line. And what is on the top line? It's your, generally speaking, it's your green fees for public and resort, and your membership fees and guest fees for a private. Does that sound about right? And so if you drive
As
that
long as
up,
you're including cart fees in there too, Ross.
so there you go. Right. So, you guys are more of the financial wizards than I. But I'm just a lowly director of golf. But so if and as he continued to explain himself, and as you know, John, if you haven't had a chance to meet him, you just got to get him started, and you're going to get a pretty good response. And he explains himself well. But if you can drive that top line, that just means more revenue for the facility, as opposed to just focusing on the bottom line. And you're worried about all these expenses and what it's costing the club. And next thing you know, a lot of the services go downhill generally. Does that sound about right?
Ross, that's my philosophy. I completely agree with what John said. When I told our team, I said, look, I want to grow our payroll. I want to increase our payroll. And they're like, and if the owner hears that, he's like, what are you talking about? Increase your payroll? Why do you want to increase your payroll? That's going to increase your expenses. And the whole philosophy behind growing your payroll is because hopefully the increase in payroll is generating more revenues and more increase in revenues that are exponentially higher than the increase in the payroll. And that's what we've been doing for the last 4 years at Arrowwood, is grow the revenues. That's how you grow the business, not cutting expenses and minimizing expenses to make minimal net income. To me, that doesn't make sense. It goes across the grain of what capitalism is all about. You got to grow the pie. And so you can pay people properly, take care of the course properly. You could reinvest into the golf course, like, build a Top Chaser lounge. These are things why you grow the revenue. That's why you do it.
Good example. That
And-
Top Tracer, I understand you just got that going. So congratulations. That should be helpful to your top line, correct?
Exactly right, Ross. Exactly.
If I might add to that a little bit, Tom, the industry has gone through a cycle and change, and it's pivoted over the last 2 years, year and a half with COVID, that we've got a tailwind and there's lots of opportunity for us. I happen to have lived, like Ed and quite a few of you on here, through the last 15 years of a downturn in the industry, with things depleting and golf courses closing. So I think philosophically, Tom, I'm right in line with you that we need to grow the top line, and you're gonna become more successful and be able to expand things and grow at a much better rate and a better way and a healthier way by being able to grow your top line. But there are times when the proverbial crap hits the fan, and you're going to have to make decisions that are expense related, and they're harsh decisions, and you're accountable for those. So you do need to be prepared for that, and that's part of knowing your numbers. But top line is a great way to go, and as you're moving and you're putting things in place, fantastic. But realize there will be times when things are crashing and going another way, and you better be pivoting quickly. So don't get stuck just in that one mindset. Be ready to pivot. Be prepared to, just in case.
So we're going to take a minute now to open it up again. So if anybody has any questions for Tom or Paul about anything, about how to become a general manager, career path, maybe a challenge they've had, advice for you, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. You can ask it in the chat box if you want. I can read that. If you want to open up your video and chat for a second too, that's great. This is supposed to be interactive, and we want to hear from you. And the more questions you ask now, the more you're going to learn. So this is the whole purpose of this, is to help everybody on this call become better professionals at what they do. So anybody have a question for Tom or for Paul?
I've got a question, Ed, since I seem to be on a roll here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, Ross, go ahead.
A lot of leaders, they always, I wouldn't say always, but generally they're reading, some kind of a book that helps their profession, or just a fun book that seems to tie in with their profession. I think back to like what I've heard about, Tom is a graduate of West Point, military leaders, to to get their next, when they're generals, admirals, what have you, they always are asked to read certain books, and you hear about different CEOs. They seem to, read this book or the other. So this is for both Paul and Tom. Is there a book you recommend? What's on your current reading list right now?
Go ahead, Paul. You're an avid reader. I'm not.
Yeah, I actually have about 5 books that any of my leadership team, when they join, that they end up going through the process in the first year. And they're smaller, they're simple things that were around for a while, things like Raving Fans. We've got, man, I have to go back through the list now with them and pull them out. But I'd be happy to send out an email of the different list of ones that we have. The one I'm not going through now, but I've been using a lot is the 4 Disciplines of Execution. And looks like this. And it's one of those that really helps me to work with my team on how we focus on wildly important goals each year. And what are the most important things from a year where we needed to grow our membership to a year where we need to retain every member we can. And to make sure that we're spending an extra focused amount of time every week together on what we're doing to accomplish that. Because there's a whirlwind of other stuff out there to do that's always going to be there. But what are we doing to kind of refocus the team every week and provide that rudder in the water to make sure we're heading in the right direction? So that one's one of my favorites right now, working with our teams. But there's a preliminary list of books that we use, and we'll be happy to send that list out.
Yeah, Paul, we'll get that information. We'll get that out to everybody. Thanks for sharing. Tom?
Ross, again, I'm not an avid reader, but I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek. I believe in everything that he says. Infinite mindset. It's all about learning and improving every day, not about winning and losing. So there's a book called Leaders Eat Last. Leaders Eat Last. It's a military a saying. It's a military phrase where leaders eat last in the military, and I've experienced that myself for 5 years in the Army. But it talks about infinite mindset and what it means and what it means to be a leader. And I love that book. I give it to most of our employees to read it, especially the leaders. It's a great book on leadership. So Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek is my favorite book recently.
Very cool. Thank you, guys.
Anybody else have any questions for Paul or Tom? I've got plenty. So if no one else has any questions, I have plenty for these two. All right. So we're still facing one of the toughest things that the world has ever seen with what we're going through with the pandemic. It's not over yet, and we still have some challenges ahead. Paul, can you give us one example of something you did through COVID that you've never done before? And then how did it change your operation as a leader?
Well, we had to pivot quickly for us with food and beverage. We made drastic changes with furlough programs, as many clubs did or companies did. And we scaled back. We kept everybody in the golf course operating to maintain the golf course. But we put most of the club on furlough because initially we didn't know how long this was going to go. The initial estimates were 60 days, the beginning portions. But one of the things we did with food and beverage is we pivoted to family meals and to-go meals. And we were running, 70-80% of the same volume in food and beverage that we were with regular dining, just with to-go meals. Wow. And building a system where members could just drive up and take meals home, pick them up and bill, and they absolutely loved it. And we've still had that going. It's changed our entire food and beverage operation to where the to-go meals and family meals, they come in. We had, about 30 of them go out tonight. And our golf course is closed right now for overseed on the greens rounds. So, to have that business at this time of the year or this through that period was phenomenal.
Yeah. That's something to have something change so drastically, to manage it, to adapt to it. kudos to you and your staff for doing that. I know the members probably are thrilled to death that you guys adjusted so fast and quickly and were able to make them happy. So kudos to you and your team on that. Tom, same question for you. What's a big challenge that you had to change and overcome?
During COVID, we were closed for the month of April last year. During the 1 month, we did, as Paul mentioned, trying to be reinventive with our F&B operations. And one of the ways to drive foot traffic to our golf course was an idea that what about having the community? We have almost 1,000 homes surrounding our golf course. Allow the community to walk on the front line on the cart path. It's closed, so nothing's being used on the golf course. So why don't we allow community to walk with their families, their dogs, on the cart path on the front line and enjoy the beautiful scenery, the climate of Arrowwood. And while they're up there, they could enjoy a drink or eat or take it home with them. So that really built a great rapport with the community, and they were really thankful that we allowed them to walk in a beautiful golf course. It's about, I guess about 45-minute walk, the 9 holes in the front. And it really kicked in the F&B business. I think we made $40,000 the month of April, whereas we probably would have made very minimal if it wasn't for that. So, and then that led on to another idea. Why don't we have a community fair where we have local vendors come up once a month and set up with tents, shops, whatever they sell. And we invite the community to come up and shop from the vendors. And then while they're up there, we have live music going on Saturday, and then actually gravitate towards the bar and order some drinks and food. So like Paul said, we connected the reinventiveness of the COVID situation, the challenge, into an opportunity that we still enjoy today.
That's I tell you what, St. Andrews has nothing on you because they allow people to walk on their golf course too. So you and St. Andrews, so that's awesome that you've raised the bar so high that you're St. Andrews of California. So great job there. Any other questions from anybody else here before I make some final comments and let our 2 superstar general managers make some final comments? Any other questions? All right. I will say this, I've learned a ton tonight. I personally have, and I've got a lot of notes here, and I will take a lot from this and educate further professionals as we go down the line from some of the things that we took out of here today. It's interesting. I kept hearing education. I kept hearing mentor. I kept hearing use your resources, think outside the box. All those things came out of this meeting tonight. And I will say again, that sounds like to be a great general manager, you have to be open. You got to be honest. You got to be willing to help your staff at any time to grow and learn. So a lot of great things came out of this. A lot of best practices came out of this. So thank you 2 gentlemen for that. Darwin, I have a saying that I like to quote. I always screw it up, so I'll give you the gist of it. But Darwin said, it's not the strongest that survive. It's not the smartest that survive, but it's the most adaptable. And I kept hearing versions of adaptability tonight from both general managers, both Tom and Paul, about how they had to adapt, not only during COVID, but other situations that have come up through your career. And you did it so well. And that's where you achieved great success. So kudos to you. And thank you for being here. Paul, do you have any last words of wisdom for us this evening?
Well, no, I think everything that we've talked about has been, is stuff that everybody can do. And I think there isn't anything that I think should hold you back from what you're trying to accomplish. I know when I was, whether I was teaching and looking at a general manager or kind of switching roles and pivoting in the middle of my career at that time, there were a lot of things that said, why would you go that route? Why would you want to do it? You've built up so much experience doing these others. And part of it was the challenge. And, there's certain things you need to recognize for yourself along the way and know, hey, you know what, I'm willing to give that a go and challenge myself to think differently and to operate differently. And can I do that? Am I willing to? And if you find a sweet spot for yourself that you love and you're passionate about, stay with it. That's great. And if you find that you're looking for other opportunities and you're trying to improve yourself, great, do it. And just don't be afraid to ask for help. And that's what we're here for. That's why we have this association, is to be able to help each other through this in our industry. And that's, again, go back to use your resources. They're out there. Any of us are available, and I'm still calling and asking for help too. So it's, let alone everything else we need to be doing. So I wish you guys the best, but hope to hear from some people. If there's anything we can do.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate that. Tom, any final words of wisdom?
Yeah, first I'd like to just thank you, Ed and Paul, for today, for your time, and this is wonderful. Thank you. This is the vision that we had when we started this monthly town hall for associates, and hopefully the associates on this call find this useful and informative. No, just last thing is just don't be afraid. Don't be scared. Just connect, and there's nothing to lose. There's literally nothing to lose by connecting, and we're here for you. As Paul said, the associate's here for you. The section, the chapter is here for you. There's great people in the association, and please connect. It's nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Tom, thank you. Stephen, thank you. Ho, thank you. Ross, thank you. Sean, thank you. Patrick, thank you. Mike, thank you. TA, thank you. Ryan, thank you. Jeff, thank you. And final thanks to Tom and Paul so much for being here this evening. You've changed lives again. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Enjoyed
Thank
it.
you, guys.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good work.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, Ross.
Thank you, Ed. See you, Jeff.